Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hansen, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all on this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure in life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. This is going to be a very interesting conversation here tonight. With three of the Ricktastics and one stand-in because our tambourine player is off doing something else. That's Ashley Kurtenbach usually with a tambourine player, but tonight we have filling in as our tambourine player none other than Sierra Obler, and then we have lead guitar and vocalist Ricky Bruley, and we have Kelly Lovelace on drums. He's like the Phil Collins of the Ricktastics.
Phil Collins. Wow.
And it's been so long since Ricky Bruley has been on with me, I just about forgot his name. But I remembered it now. It's not like we were like the band that was going to break up and we weren't the Eagles or anything like that. We all get along, you know.
Oh yeah. We're all alive and kicking and just had stuff going on, right? So I just had to stay on the behind the scenes and give Rick the spotlight for a while. So
yeah, and it was a dim spotlight at that. Anyway, anyway, you know, I miss these conversations. Actually, you know, sometimes I really miss our conversations that we have because we go places that some people never really. They think about maybe sometimes, but they won't actually get out and talk about. And we've talked about this before, where we have the conversations, and then we open up other conversations for people to talk about what we talked about. I've been reading a book called "Right Thing Right Now" by Ryan Holiday, and I try to put what he's saying into my leadership at work. And I try to keep on telling people that sometimes we need to do the right thing, even if it doesn't help us out. I hope you understand that, what I'm saying. And he had one thing in there. It's like, we shouldn't say, how was I successful today, but how have we helped other people out to be successful? And doing the right thing and living a good life. And I just start seeing people that are so divisive at times because they aren't getting what they want. I was wondering, I wanted to do this and just talk about, like, if we can influence anybody by looking at this, because I always say I cheer everybody on, which I do, you know. Sometimes I get defensive because I feel like, you know, if you could just see it my way, you're doing it the right way. But we all know that's been kind of a mistake every once in a while. But what I'm trying to get at is we should be doing the right thing because it's the right thing for not just for us, but for the people around us. I hope we can strike up some conversations here, because Sierra actually sent me a text or called me. Sometimes she doesn't answer me for days, and sometimes she doesn't even text me back for weeks. And, you know, I understand we're talking to a woman that's going to have a baby here in... When you're having your baby?
Well, he's due April 1st, but I told my doctor if we get close to the end of March, it's coming out.
That's what I thought too, Ricky. But Sierra sent me a text a while ago about we should do a podcast also called Simple Not Easy. And I look at Simple Not Easy as also a good conversation to have. It's a good start to it. And all of you, how many truly honest people do you know?
I would like to think there's a handful, but sometimes, I'm guarded because there's lots of people in my life that I thought were honest, and usually you kind of find something out about them. Yeah, it's a rare quality. I think these days it's hard to find, and so I think that's why as you get older, I think you start to kind of limit the number of people that you choose to spend your time with, because you're just going to put more of that time into those people that are honest and trustworthy and loyal.
I try to pride myself on being the most honest person. I think since this podcast has began, I've let myself be seen from the inside out. And thankfully to you guys, probably all three of you actually, in different situations, I've let myself be seen with when we were up in 24 below zero weather in Oaks, North Dakota, freezing our butts off, having a good conversation with Kelley. I exposed myself to the world. And I think when we come on these episodes here and expose ourselves to the world, there can't get much more honesty than that. And Kelley, you have brought that out of us at times because of your wisdom. You have also given us more things to think about. And Sierra texts me every once in a while, but I text her right back anyway. And and gives me other ideas because she tells me what she's heard in our conversations at times too. I trust Kelley because he's been very honest with me in life. And I trust you, Ricky, and Sierra, and I trust a few other people, but I always wonder if there's always with some people, I think they're good people, but I always wonder if there's an ulterior motive every once in a while.
Bueller.
Kelley, you go first, and then I'll go.
Okay. I've got friends I'm real careful about who I let in my circles, my inner circles. I've been burned a few times in my life, and by people that I probably should not have been burned by. People that should have been in my corner and weren't. And so there's moments where I have to make myself trust people
Yeah.
and try to think the best, I guess. I do have people in my life that are very honest with me, and I appreciate that. Even when it's hard, I think it's good to have close friends who know you well and are able to tell you the hard things. They're just not there to butter you up and move you along and keep the relationship kosher. They're your friend and they're telling you the hard stuff because they love you and you can trust them. I think we all have maybe some of those people in our life. A majority of people, and I'll just agree with you, Rick, that there's an ulterior motive or a secondary agenda to the relationship. And I don't know how you get around that stuff, right? It's going to happen. And usually you see it pretty quickly.
I kind of, I agree with both of you. I think, even with Troy, my husband, it took me 5 years to even let him ask me out on a date. So the trust aspect for me is such a long-term thing for me to actually trust you. And so, I bet there is just a handful of people too for me that it's I would trust you with anything. I know that you're going to tell me the hard truth. But, I also look at it as my son, Coy, who's 3, he's honest about everything, whether you want him to be or not. And so in that aspect too, it's kind of a light to be okay, why are we not honest when this 3-year-old walks around telling me everything. Like I said, whether we want to hear it and know all of it or not. But then I also think, being honest at the right time versus just not saying anything is a big part as an adult, to be like, okay, right now I need to be honest with you. Whereas maybe I just need to listen, not respond, and then be honest at a different time. I think about that sometimes. Or, if I'm honest with everyone, but how deep into that trust and that honesty do I go with different people? Because there's some people where, I'll dive into anything and I'll be honest. And then there's other people where I'm still going to be honest with you, but I'm also going to draw that line of where I stop with the trust too. So.
I like what you said about that, the kind of the time. And, if, there was a time where truth was a fault for me to the point where sometimes it was hurtful. And we all know the saying, right? The truth hurts. But I had to, the church taught me that I have to speak the truth in love, right? And so I always think about that. And so I've gotten better. Sometimes things still get blurted out, and, there's always that redeeming factor of, well, I said the truth, like I'm speaking truth, right? So there's that, you're kind of giving yourself a pat on the back for speaking the truth. But to your point, you got to do it with love, and you got to sometimes maybe even step back. That's one skill that took me a while to figure out, is that maybe now is not the time for this conversation. Maybe we need to step away from this and just have, take a breather, put some thought into it. Sometimes it takes a day or maybe even 2 days, but yeah, I think that's pretty important too, is the timing.
And I do too. I mean, I understand that we need to choose our times to tell that person that thing. There's sometimes that you just walk away from the situation at that time until you're alone. I mean, there's sometimes you don't need to make a scene and make somebody feel like an idiot right in front of other people. And if you care about, because here's the deal, we've all been around those people that, like, I can shoot a 200-inch whitetail, and Kelley would tell me a story, and he'd shoot a 201-inch whitetail, and Ricky would shoot a 203-inch whitetail, and Sierra would just beat us all and shoot a 230-incher. But what I'm saying is, we know those people that they haven't shot a spike, but they're telling us that they told us the story because they want to one-up us. And we get to those situations where, you know what, you maybe either you get them out of your life, out of that, where it's just an acquaintance and you don't have to see them again, so you just don't say anything, or we are friends with them and say, you know what, maybe you need just to listen sometimes and not voice your opinion or tell us a story that we know isn't true.
There's a classic line that comes with people that I like to call one-uppers, and it always goes, "Oh, that's nothing." It always starts with, "Oh, that's nothing." We used to have a one-upper at our shop, and I kid you not, he one-upped me on a toilet install once. I was just talking about installing a new toilet, and then all of a sudden he goes, "Oh, that's nothing." And I stopped him. I'm like, "Wait a minute. You're about to up me on a toilet installation right now?"
So, but I mean, in that situation, it's interesting to me because I look at, that's a virtue thing to me too. And also in the book it said, virtue has to be our compass. Goodness has to be our goal. And, I mean, to tell you the truth, Ricky and we've been to enough hunting shows or something like that where there are these one-uppers, but I usually listen, and I sometimes I don't say anything. There's some people I get, like I said earlier, I get defensive with, and I want to say screw you, and I can show you pictures. Now let's see yours in that fact. But I've since I've been doing things and reading these books, I try not to get so. It's not defensive. It's just like I wanted to point out you're not telling the whole story, and I that's my problem. My problem is, and most of you know this, is if I'm telling a story, it's Rick was a dumbass and probably did do that. And many of you have been with me in that situation, and I'm sorry, Kelley, but many of you have been with me in those situations where, what the heck is Rick doing? And I can tell the story that I got into, and I got into this somehow mess, and luckily I'm still here talking to you guys because I got out of it. And sometimes I might add a little something for laughter, but you know what I mean? It's not, I don't, I think it comes with confidence too. I think when you become confident with yourself, you don't have to one up somebody.
Yeah. Can you, I want to go back real quick, Rick. Read that quote again from the book.
Virtue has to be our compass, but goodness has to be our goal.
So for anybody who doesn't know, like, the specific definition of what virtue is it's a behavior showing high moral standards. So essentially, like, by breaking that down, what you're saying is have those high moral standards, but also don't forget about the goodness, right? Being a good person, right? So
Exactly.
I just wanted to break a little bit.
It's easier to be a great man than a good one. Because we measure some great people on what they have achieved in finances. But sometimes it's harder to be harder to be a good man, good person. And that's what, gosh darn, I mean, if you're watching any social media posts of mine or the Don't Die Rusties, we're always pushing out to be a good person every day. And you know what? These posts that I put out, that Don't Die Rusty and puts out, it's so interesting when you do this every day. It's kind of like working out. And when you post something good every day and you see it every morning, it's made me a better person because that's how I'm starting out my day. When you get to that 1 o'clock in the afternoon thing and you're thinking about being that this day is crumbling around you and all these demons are coming after you, and if that one post that we have done, and I'm not kidding you, there's been times that I go back and look at that in the middle of the day and I go, you wrote this, or do you believe in this, or are you just saying it? And I've had other people send me messages about, thank you, I needed that today. But what I'm saying is, if we try to live the good life, if we try to not be great, but we try to be good, we become better.
Yeah, what it boils down to, I think, is what are you pursuing? What are you going after? What are you pursuing? So sometimes you have to sacrifice greatness to be good. And I think you kind of started off this conversation that way, Rick. Like, um, I have this moment for greatness, but to do the good that I want to do, I'm gonna have to sacrifice that at times. And that's because to be good, you have to be self-sacrificing. And this is the way that we want to try and live in order to better ourselves. What am I pursuing? If I want to be a morally good person, and virtue and morality is my compass, then I'm going to have to do things differently. I'm going to have to hold myself to a different standard than what we see taking place in the world. And that's not easy. That's hard. I've been talking to my son recently just about mental toughness, and I think it needs to come in here. I think this is a good place to kind of insert that, because as we pursue our goals, as we go after um, this high moral standards, we pursue virtue for the sake of being a better person, a good person. There's gonna be times of adversity. There's going to be things that tempt us or try to push us off of our path. Um, And so at that point, we have to have this mental toughness. Today I might not feel like helping that other person. Today, I'm just in a bad mood, and I don't. Everybody I talk to, I'm a bear towards. Um, it gets we get that way. Like we have bad days, and so we have to develop this mental toughness to stay focused, because there's so many things out there that's going to distract us from pursuing, from heading towards virtue. And then the result of that, the fruit of that, should be goodness, right, in me. Um so we don't develop that mental toughness when things are going well. We develop that mental toughness when we struggle. And we can say that about a lot of things. Like, we just become better at what we do when we learn from our struggles. But mental toughness is a key component in all of that, because without that mental toughness, we give up.
Mm-hmm.
Without that mental toughness, we give in, right? Which, those are two different things, giving up and giving in. And so we've got to be able to realize that there are moments when it's tough, and maybe we can't trust the people that are in our circle right now. We might feel completely alone in that moment. Uh, we have to realize we have a goal. I can't remember who told me the quote, but there's a quote that was given to me that said, don't take what you want now and sacrifice what you really want. So let's say I'm trying to lose weight, but boy, that cake looks good. My goal is to drop 50 pounds, but I want to eat that whole chocolate cake sitting over there. Don't sacrifice what you really want for what you want right now. That's the quote, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so this goes into this, like, what are we chasing after? And if that's our goal, we have to make a decision to stay focused on that, even in those moments when it starts to get fuzzy, blurry, and hard. You might be moving right into your simple and easy, not simple, not easy, before you know it, Rick.
Here's the funny thing, and and when we're talking simple, not easy, it's amazing for me. But I just had this conversation, and I don't know if it pertains to what we're talking about. But I had it today, and it was with a state trooper. And I know we're going to get religious. I'm going to get religious on you guys at this moment, okay? But I am going to. He works for me now. He's a retired state trooper. And we were talking, and he's seen a lot of crappy stuff. And we were talking, and somehow we got talking about God. And he says, and he's from the South, so I don't know if I should do my Southern accent that he does, but he's kind of like,
Please do.
he said to me, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you say you're the most believing atheist that you are. When you're in a car wreck, everybody believes in God. Everybody believes in God, he said, because that's the first words that come out of your mouth. Oh, God, can you help me? And here's where I'm going with that, though. When you were talking about earlier, we have to decide the directions we're going to go. Are we going to be that good person? And what helps us be that good person? Because here's the other thing we were talking about, too, because we have to be centered. We have to have centered. And who believes the most? You have to. I think he was reading a book. You guys might know it is something about he's the most believing atheist or something. It was a funny thing. I can't remember how it was worded, but it was like. But here's the deal. if we do not have the virtues, and I think being the good person is showing your integrity. And I walked out of a meeting yesterday, and I was in a 2.5 hour meeting. It was actually 1.5 hours, and then it got to be 45 minutes extra. And I get a little passionate about what I'm talking about, and I back my fellas up every time I get it, and that's what we're talking about. But here's what I said. I said, I'll get this thing done for you. And because he was going to do some paperwork. I said, you keep that paperwork right now. But I'll get that thing done for you. And because I have integrity and character, and I'm giving you my word. And that's all I have, because I'm not a rich man. Because if I was a rich man, I'd probably fly you guys here and we would be talking in person and giving you, we'd be sitting around a table, and actually we wouldn't be here. We'd be in Oaks, North Dakota, enjoying the 24 below weather.
Trust me, if you're spending money to travel somewhere, you don't want to spend it to come to Oaks, North Dakota.
Well, I'd be bringing you guys in for once a week, But what I'm saying is, if that's what I pride myself on, and at time when I was 20 years old, I would have probably said I was that, and not had confidence that I was that. I would have said, you can believe me. I am all the trials and all the tribulations and everything that has happened to me in my life that I've created. I'm not going to deny that I wasn't the one creating some of the messes I got into. But what I am saying is, going through that, why do we have to go through all the hardships to figure out who we are? I have no idea that we can't have a fun life. We always have to go to the ends of the earth and go through hell to figure out that we need to turn something around to go good, but that's the way it is, I mean, but that's where I'm going with this is, you learn from this stuff, and I want to become the best person I can be. And it started 15 years ago with you, Kelley. It started when you walked into my life, and I thought I was good, but I didn't know I was good. And I know I can go in that direction, and you helped me get that confidence to become a better person. Now, I look at Ricky. I remember us in Indianapolis at an ATA show I had the time of my life at that stuff, and I know who Ricky is. I know Kelley because you and I have been through some torturous times. I mean, there's more times with Ricky than that, but and then I know
Were they
Sierra.
torturous?
And I'm talking about with me mentally, not you. Well, no, not. I'll get to you, Sierra. But the torturous part is watching you miss deer.
Yeah.
I don't know how many. Was that
I'm
50
never going to
times
live
you
that
missed?
down, am I?
And then I see Sierra grow up, and I see her being competitive. I see her drive. I see how she has grown as a woman. All three of you, I'm proud of to say that you're in this circle. And we've always talked about the circle of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was talking about that honest friend. Do they want something from you, or are they being truly, honestly good to you? I'll stop my rant.
Okay, I think part of it, when you start talking about your virtues, to some extent, every person dives into their faith in some way. Because without your faith, it's kind of like you lose a third of all of your virtues. And so it's like, okay, if I am a believer, then what I do and my virtues are going to be based off of that. And I also think, Rick, you talking about why do we have to go through all these hard times and all of this? And I have, ever since Grandma Dot, your mom, passed away, I have just been trying very hard to, I will never, I'm kind of biased, but I don't think I will ever meet anyone who was as deep into their faith and was just blunt about it as Grandma Dot was. But I like to think that, I can dive as deep into it as she was, because it was very much, you know what? Yes, we are going through a hard time, but God has this figured out for us. He's going to watch us do this. He's going to watch us make these choices, make these decisions. But at the end of the day, just because we make those decisions and we think we know our virtues doesn't mean he's going to just up and leave because he doesn't agree. I think it's more of he's going to watch us struggle. He's going to say, yep, this is what's going to happen. They're going to make this choice. But in the end, I still know what's going to happen. And I'm going to help them figure out which virtues are right. And at 20 years old, our virtues are very different even at 30 years old or whatever it is. So I think when you start tying all of that in, and even the morality of things, like they all go hand in hand, and you can question all of them in a different way and to a different extent. But at the end of the day, they all have to work together for you to be that bigger and better person than you were yesterday.
Yeah, because I'd prefer the chocolate cake without frosting on it and a little vanilla on top, because that's what Kelley was talking about earlier. Now he made me hungry. But no,
Oh, yeah.
but it's kind of funny how this turns, but it is the right thing, and it's funny how this book is. I get to a chapter and I go, what in the world does this do? And it's funny. What's really funny is I can't remember what I read a long time ago and I told people to read, but it just kept on repeating itself. Like one chapter would just touch on the next chapter, and the next chapter would touch on what we just read, and the next chapter would touch. So you repeated everything and you started understanding how the whole thing went. And it kind of got me believing in what the author was trying to say, and understanding it, I should say, not believing, but understanding. And then I talked to you guys, and this has been on my mind. I get up in the morning and go for my walks, and it was 12 below yesterday, Kelley, and it was 2 below today, and I was out there in frost. But the moon was wonderful. I did post that about the moon today. But here's what I'm saying is it's been on my mind for, I bet, a month and a half now, about just there's certain people in my life, and I can't, they're going to be there, and I got to keep them at arm's length, but I don't see the integrity, I don't see the virtue, and I don't see certain things that you aren't going to make me a better person. You aren't going to help me out in any way. And I keep on trying, so I try to help them, because I believe that if we try to help people see that they're missing something, see that you know what, this is why you only have a certain amount of friends, and do you really call them friends? Because here's the deal, I don't believe in you, because I see what you're giving to the world, and it's not moral and ethical, and who, I'm the least person. I can say that, like we talked earlier, you change your moral and ethical values as you grow, because you're learning what they are, or don't you think? Or
Yeah, I think it's the angle at which you're at, dependent on where stage you are in life. And as you get older, your perspective widens, right? So there's two words that I kind of talk about, and that's perception versus perspective. My perceptions in life aren't always true. But once I start getting a better angle on it and I can see the bigger picture, I get a more truthful perspective of what I'm looking at. And the magnifying glass starts working a little better as you gain some experience, you gain some knowledge, and you gain some understanding. Those are three totally separate things. Wisdom is a big part of that. And wisdom is given. Wisdom is not something like you learn out of a book, or it's something that you're given. You're given this viewpoint. That's really what we've got to come into some grips with is what is our perspective, and are we looking for the truth, or are we receiving whatever comes my way that benefits me as the truth? That's totally different, right? Um, you know, I want to go back to what Sierra said about faith. So the first question you've got to ask yourself about virtue is, who sets that standard in your life? Who says this is virtuous? Who says this is untrustworthy? Who is it? Where did that come from? Like, I think I could say my dad taught me some very virtuous things, but he was taught those. Those weren't his. He didn't come up with them. Um, this is something that I teach when I'm given the opportunity. So I'm just going to kind of steal the opportunity real quick, right?
We love
And
that,
that's
but
this. So
you know that's one of the 10 Commandments not to steal. But I'll let you do it this time.
yes, I appreciate you schooling me on the Ten Commandments. That's perfect. You're killing me, Rick. Okay, so here we go. Let's. I call them the P series. Okay, so you have a principle that we put in our life. We should tell the truth. We should be honest. Why? Because there's a precept. It's a law that says don't bear false witness or don't lie. That's one of the 10 Commandments too. Right? It's a
Just so you
precept. So
know.
the precept supports the principle. It's not the other way around. And if you have a precept that you're living by, and you understand that there's if you have a principle you're living by, and you understand there's a precept that backs up that principle, then you have to believe there's a person who wrote the precept, right? There's a person who came up with the law or the rule, okay? And for me, that's God. That's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. That includes God the Father, Jesus Christ, and his Holy Spirit that he sent with us. And so when we talk about virtue, we have to go back to the P series here, the three Ps, and understand somebody had to write that down and tell you what was right and wrong. Correct? I mean, you
Yes.
think about it. So, Sarah, you got a 3-year-old. How does he know what right and wrong are?
And
You
right now,
have to teach him.
it's all just being taught to him. Yep.
Right. There are some things he might kind of catch on his own, but more often than not, you have to teach him that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when this happened to us, when my oldest daughter was 3, we were in the grocery store and a larger lady walked by. She's sitting in the cart and she said, "Mom, that lady's fat," really loud. It's a truth, but you probably shouldn't say that, right? It's an embarrassing moment. She's 3. She doesn't know that it's not proper, right? To say that out loud in front of the person that you're saying it about. So they have to be taught. You teach them. So we have a Father in heaven who teaches us. Jesus gave us uh, his teachings and his example to follow. And so we have to come to terms with that first. Who says this is virtuous, and who says this is not a good example of virtue, right? From there we can move on. We can it's easier to focus on doing the right thing, not the great thing. Sometimes the right thing and the great thing are different,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we allow God's word to lead us and direct us. And that's when we begin to trust him, put our faith in that. And that's like we're starting out here, we're talking about trusting somebody. You asked how many honest people are in our life. I have to trust God before I trust anybody else. I have to trust that he's got a plan for me. I have to trust that he did what he said he did, and he's going to do what he says he's going to do, right? And so I have to trust him before I trust others. And what I've learned, especially in my field as a pastor, is that God will show you who's being open and honest with you. and who is not. I'd like to believe that I'm a discerning person all on my own, but it's not me. It's what God shows me in people and in my experience that goes along with that. My experience working with people has shown me what those true colors look like. And the bottom line is no one changes on their own. It takes God to change them. Okay. Here's the crazy thing. He's called all of us to partner with him in order to change the people of the world. That's the only way to change the culture.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. And I promise I won't try to teach you about what the 10 Commandments are and what they aren't.
I'm just saying, he said he was going to steal things, you know. I'm just trying to
Time, just a little bit of time. I stole a little bit of time. I borrowed. How about that? That's better. I
There we
borrowed
go.
it. I'll give it back now.
All right.
Hmm.
But here's the funny thing. Here's a question I have to ask you, though. Because we gain wisdom. Did you say, like, we gain wisdom, correct? Is that...
Yeah, it's a gift from God through our experiences. Like, there are people who do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again all the time, and they don't ever learn from it, right? And they're trying to get a different result, but isn't that the definition? I think Einstein's credited with saying crazy insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen people just do the same thing over and over and over again, and they never gain an ounce of wisdom from those moments. So I do believe it comes in the experience when we mess up or when we're looking at life, but it's a gift that God gives us. Does that make sense?
Oh,
I
definitely.
hope it does.
The ability
Yeah.
to like pivot and try to do it differently.
That's it. That's the wisdom. That's where God shows us, right?
Yep.
Because my question was going to be going back. The ice cream thing kind of made me think about something when we were thinking, and it's about...
Who talked about ice cream?
Yeah, a cake then. But anyway,
Rick
Guys
just
got ice
thinks
cream
about
and
ice
cake.
cream 20.
Yeah, who's got ice cream and cake? I want some.
well, I'm telling you, it's one of those deals. I just love
Is
ice
there a
cream.
birthday?
But here's the deal: is when you're 20 years old, when you're 15 to 20 to, we'll go even to 30, we'll say, and you can eat all the cake and ice cream and Mountain Dew and have a taco here and there and maybe a cookie, but what I'm going with this is your reasoning is that you can have all this stuff because you're young. You don't notice because you're moving all the time. You're active. You don't get fat, as your daughter would say. I didn't say
Yes.
that. But here's where I'm going with this. When your value system, here's where I'm going, is their value system, your integrity, is that has to be growing with you when you're going through all those early 20 to 20-year-old experiences, and either you go one direction or you might go middle or you might go the other direction. And I'm saying, like, give up on life, or everything's going, you're turning and you're saying the wisdom is coming, and I need to be a more virtuous person. I need to be more... Do you grow up with that, do you think, or do you learn in your 20s? Because I only have to lift a little bit when I'm 20 and I look good, that kind of stuff. And what I'm going with that is things are going good sometimes when you're at that age, because you don't think about anything else, because you've been to college, did this and that, and you had some fun or whatever you went and did, and life is good. I can live... How many 20-year-olds live simple? You know what I mean? If I went back and had to eat ramen noodles and sleep on a couch or something, I might have a backache and a stomach ache all at the same time.
Right.
I've gained wisdom that I don't want to eat that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I got. I think I could say this about all four of my kids. Sarah, I've got, just so you know, I've got two grown daughters that are married, and I've got 2 grandkids and a grandkid on the way. And then I've got I got a 22-year-old son, and then I've got an 18-year-old that's still at home. He's a senior this year. And I can honestly say that all 4 of them have made way better decisions in their 18 to 27, right? Like I've got 18 to 27-year-old kids, and they've all made better decisions, it seems like, that than I made when I was that age. And I can't explain it other than maybe there's some factors that go into this. So number one, it's the people that God brings along your path that stick, that help you to see better. Like that's something that I prayed for all my kids, is that there would be a person of influence who is not me that would lead them in the right direction, and they learn from them. It's somebody who would influence their decision making in their life, because parents are kind of like, well, it's my dad. He's supposed to say those things,
Yeah.
kind of deal. The other part of it is I'd like to believe that I influenced them starting out at an early age when they're 3. And I'll give you an example. So my daughter, Jessica, she's the oldest. That's the one who's called the lady fat in the grocery store.
Hopefully she listens to that.
She was young, toddler, and we had a fireplace with a little I don't know what you call it. It's a little step up and then the fireplace. So whatever a hearth. And my wife had one of those smelly scented candles on there. And I lit it, and she goes, "You need to move that because Jessica's gonna burn herself." And I go, "No, let's not move it." And I looked at Jessica when I lit it, because she's, it's a flame, so it looks really cool. And I go, "Don't touch that. It's hot." I go, "That's hot." And I walked away. And Rhonda goes, "You're not going to move it?" And I go, "No, she's going to burn herself." I said, "If she touches the candle, unless her hands are numb or she's just an absolute mental patient, she's going to move her hand, right? Like she's not going to let it catch fire." So it wasn't but a few seconds, and she cried. And we went in, and she had a little bit of, soot on her finger. And I go, "That's hot. Don't touch that," right? Well, now I just taught my daughter a lesson in life. There's a little pain involved. It sounds horrible when when you hear me tell the story, but now I don't have to worry about her grabbing pot handles on the stove, because I say that's hot, and she backs away because she knows what hot means. So I'd like to believe that I've helped them learn some life lessons in a protected environment before they were released out into the world, and so they gained a little bit of wisdom in my own house that I was able to pass on to them. Does that make sense? So I think there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, I'm
A
with
lot of
you.
factors.
With my daughter, being 4, the natural consequences are some of the better ways for them to learn.
Yeah.
But like you said, like in a more controlled environment, I don't know what it is. What is it that doesn't Jordan Peterson say something like you got to let your kids do dangerous things carefully? Something
Yes.
like that.
Yep.
Yep, that's how, even when I entered the toddler stage, it was let your kids do dangerous things in a safe environment. Because, like, if you watch from a distance that they're doing something, you're still there. So if something severe actually happens, you're watching them. But they do need to just learn the consequences and do all that. But I was also going to piggyback off that and kind of what you were saying, Rick, like how it's so different, and Kelley, how, like, the people or the younger, I guess, generations are making different choices. I also think like the society has shifted that, and what is seen as a good or bad choice is very different. Because I'll hear stories from my parents or from Rick or from other people, and they're like, "Well, we used to do this all the time," and now you look at it into today's world, and you're like, you would never even let that thought cross your mind. Versus, like, I think that also in today's generations makes a big difference of all of that. And social media always comes up in conversation with that too, of, well, we could do this and we never got caught because we didn't have the social media. And now kids live in a world where they are basically are born and they know how to run all the technology. So
right.
I think a lot of that too plays into effect of what are you seeing as virtuous, what's good and bad. I think the social media influences of
Oh, right.
This is what I see. And yeah, so all of that plays a big part too.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
So there's multiple factors here
Mm-hmm.
when we start talking about wisdom and learning and growing and getting like moving away from a perception of something and getting a more true perspective of it. It's like when Rick walks up on that 200-inch deer and it suddenly becomes a 130-inch deer. Perspective.
Look, and there's another perspective here too.
Still
And I'm
shoot.
getting a little.
Still have
I'm
to shoot.
Yeah, I'm getting a little angry here when I was listening to you guys talking about, was it you were putting your kids into a safe, dangerous perspective or environment? Was that what it was?
Environment. Let them be dangerous in a safe environment.
I wonder what happened to me because I never had the safe environment. I was just you just go do.
That explains it.
Because it does because Sierra's talking about her grandma and my mom, and I'm looking at a corn crib that's 20 foot high, and it has boards that probably would have broke. And I go get my mom to watch me jump off the corn crib into a hay stack, and I just laugh about it and do it 10 times, and then I wonder why I'm the way I am at times. My gosh.
Well,
It was a safe environment. Mom was watching.
some of those experiences that you've gone to, Rick, with calving and all that kind of stuff. I'm a lot more careful with my daughter around, cattle and horses. So
Yeah.
you helped us out in that respect.
Well,
There you
thank
go.
you. But it is interesting how Sierra says that though, because I see sometimes that we are. I look at parenting different, but I can look at parenting different because I don't have any kids, so I have imaginary kids and I just let them run wild anyway. But but I look at it and is like if I had kids, I don't know what they'd be like, and I question myself at times. And I used to get, as I think some females would say when they get to be my age, I used to get a little clucky because I was thinking that I needed kids. I wanted to have that legacy or whatever, because I wanted to watch somebody grow up and help them grow up and learn from my errors and wisdom, which I grew from those errors, and help them become a different person. But we do learn from our errors. It's hot. I bet you hung around the wrong person probably you could get lucky. You hung around the wrong person at the right time, and you learn that you need to get away from that person because they're toxic. And I'm saying that I believe that there are toxic people for certain people. I believe that I was lucky to find the people now that they aren't nuclear waste, in the aspect that you touch it and something's going to go wrong.
But don't you think, Rick, though, that's part of your focus and what you pursue?
Oh, it is.
Right? Like, think about that. Like, if I'm pursuing this and I'm not pursuing the same thing they are, that person who is not of high moral character is probably going to go a different direction. Now, they might try to pull me with them, but if I'm focused on what I'm pursuing, then those people are going to move away. And then the people who are pursuing the same thing that I'm chasing after will begin to surround me. Like, and I'm going to look for those people. And I think that's what you've done in life is you had a moment where it turned for you. And I think we all have that moment, but it's turned for you and you're looking at what you pursue. And you don't have to have your own kids in order to invest in someone and help them live better. And I see everything you're doing. Like, and I'm not just trying to pump you up, but I see everything you're doing, moving in that towards that end. This podcast and going to some of the shows that you guys go to, and what you started out with. You had this goal to help bring some health into people's life, and give them an opportunity to replace the dysfunction that's unhealthy with something healthy and positive, right? And then here's why we're doing this. So I want you to realize what you and Ricky started is really impacting people, and they're listening to it, and they're wanting to pursue what you are pursuing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think Ricky would say the same thing.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
because it's interesting that you say that, and we're going to talk about this in another podcast, and we'll have the Ricktastics together too. But I'm going to go here right at the moment. But it's funny you say that, Kelley, about those moments that change and turn your life. And I want to do just a podcast on that sometime. But we're here right now, and I'm thinking about this, so I don't want to forget. But here's the deal. Did you know we're getting close to a year ago that we did have our interview. You and I and Ricky had our conversation in
Yep.
Oaks, North Dakota. And it was still cold there, and it's still cold now. I don't know even if you had summer. Anyway.
We didn't. Oh, I take that back. The 4th of July, we had summer.
All right. But my point is, it's interesting. Some people don't understand the moments they're having when they have them. They don't understand the importance of that one moment. And I have to say, there are some moments I knew they were important, but I didn't know how important they were to me at that moment. And like I said, we had that conversation of what happened and where I went in the bad ways when I first got to know you. There is one memory in my whole life that I'll never forget until I'm not on this world. But that one moment that turned me to really try to be the best person I could be, to really push ahead and forge forward, is that 1 hour that you came over to Triggers and took that time to start turning me around. Now, did I do it overnight? No, I did not. I had to learn things. But that one moment is when I started to feel like you need to change. You need to become a better person. You need to look at within yourself, become more moral. You got to look at what the virtues are. You got to look at your integrity. You got to look at your life in a different manner. And it's that one moment in my life that was over 15, 16, 17, 15, 16 years ago. I think that you and I...
It's probably closer to 20.
Yeah. But here's the deal. You changed my life. Now Ricky and I are doing what we're doing. And there are hard times in both of it. Like, we both get frustrated sometimes. And we both have things going on, and millions of dollars aren't coming in because we aren't Joe Rogan. But
Yet.
when you tell me, and we know that we have affected other people's lives, maybe DDR, maybe Don't Die Rusty is my baby, and Ricky's the uncle that is helping me out here. You know what I mean? In that and I'm not taking Don't Die Rusty away from Ricky, but I'm just saying, when we thought about that stuff, maybe that's something I needed to watch grow and mature, because all three of you have kids. I have nothing in that aspect of raising anything, and we're going in the direction that we need to go.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, I think, and even going into this, we had that discussion, I said, I know this is your deal. You know what I mean? Like it's your ideation, and I'm here to help you bring it to the world. So there was always that in the forefront. You need to just tell me, like, I don't want to overstep my bounds. Like, you're Batman, I'm Robin, right? Like, I think that was kind of the way we framed it. It took a little while for us to have that official conversation, because we were trying to navigate each other in the business sense of things. We know each other as friends, but how do we know each other business partners, and I think we've navigated that really well. But I'm going off on a tangent. The point is that yeah, I agree with that. I think and it's not just that, you know, just like I said, you know what I mean? You imprint on everybody, and then that is that integrity, those virtues, all those kinds of things that you imprint on us are then passed down to our children. So,
well, and then that's good, because I mean, sometimes you question yourself. But like I said, I want to do actually the next one I want to do is about, I can never relive that moment to feel the way I feel. You know, that's where I want to go with that episode is, we have those moments, and sometimes we don't know we're in them, and sometimes we know we're in them, and we know we're never going to get this feeling back. I've been in those moments where you're smiling and it feels like, I wish I could feel this, because I'm old now and I have no hair on my head, but it's like the wind's going through your hair, and smile and sunshine, and it's, you want this day never to end kind of experience. And then you go a year later and you try to relive the same experience. It's here's the deal, and maybe I can put it in, if anybody's listening here, it's kind of like Total Archer Challenge and Bowcast and whatever else. The first Bowcasts were wild and crazy, and those feelings, and you're burning candles at both ends because you're meeting so many new people, and you're having so many great conversations and having so much fun. And the next year you come, and one person may not come. The next person, you know, they're hanging out with somebody else. And I was actually talking to, I can't remember who about this. And now we're at Total Archer Challenge, and I love Total Archer Challenge, love Sean. But here's the difference between Total Archer Challenge and Bowcast, and Ricky can attest to this one, is at the first Bowcast, everybody was together. When we were at Snowbird, and there was no extra parties because everybody was together. You know, you went and ate, and everybody went to the tram club, and that's where everybody was there.
mm-hmm.
Now you go to a Total Archer Challenge, and you'll have a Yeti party over here. You'll have a loophole. I'm just saying this, loophole. Everybody goes different directions, and nobody's together anymore, so it starts changing. So will I ever get that Bowcast feeling back? No, but I can relive those memories in my head. But I was searching for those memories that you'll have, you know, and here's another one. And I remember my cousin Susie got inducted into I think it was the South Dakota Hall of Fame in Huron. And these are my favorite memories, and I will never, ever, ever get to relive this memory. But I went down with my mom to this event, and it was just her and I went to this event. In the conversations we had in the car all by ourselves, I would love to relive, and I'll always have those memories, but I will never get that back. I will never have that feeling like I did, because I've never had such heart-to-heart. It was in the same time I was going through that other crap, and my mom and I had those conversations, and I'll never get that back ever again. And that's why Don't Die Rusty has always said, realize, live for these moments. Be the best you. Go chase these dreams, because you're never going to get them back. And I will always rejoice in those memories, but I never will get that to relive that one feeling ever again. It'll be a memory, but I'm saying, you know how you forget little things, but in the time you're sitting in the car going, "This is great."
Yeah. And I think we have opportunities to either step into those or to shy away from them, right? And sometimes we shy away because it might be a little bit uncomfortable to have that conversation, or to go do that thing together, or right. But the best thing for us, I believe, is to step into that moment and to receive. I think God gives us three hats that we wear. We're either going to be a spectator in that moment, we're going to be a participant in that moment, or like our moment, Rick, I was a catalyst in that moment, right? God used me to be a catalyst. So there's three different hats that we can wear in these moments. And it's important for us to understand, okay, so right now I just need to be a spectator. Oh no, I need to participate in this. Or, hey, I think God's asking me to be a catalyst. Or I've got this draw to be a catalyst and help create some of these moments or step into those moments to be the catalyst. So it's important, man. Like what you're doing and what I believe what I do, it's about changing people's lives. We've got to care about our brother and sister, and that should be the goodness, the pursuit of that, not the greatness, right? The truth is, being a servant, nobody ever has become great other than maybe Jesus Christ taking on the role of a servant. We begin to understand what goodness looks like and how we can be transformed into a good person, and that goodness can flow through us and out of us into the life of somebody else. But rarely does that type of service become something that's great, because that's not what the world values. So
Well,
don't die
tomorrow,
rusty.
yeah, definitely. But it's kind of funny because tomorrow night I have to talk at our all store meeting, like I said earlier.
So your moment, you're going to be the catalyst in that moment.
I am going to be the catalyst, and I'm going to give you a story because it's going to be next week, and nobody will be able to listen to it if they do listen, because it'll be after the meeting. But here's the story I'm going to tell. About 3 years ago, I went to Sorenex's Winter Strong. It's a deal where you're lifting weights. You get to do woodcraft. They teach you how to shoot guns. They in a better way. They have all kinds of activities going on here at this Winter Strong. And I went up to go to the rifle shooting, and who was teaching this was a Marine sniper. I mean, and when he's teaching us, we're on the gun range, and he's telling us exactly how to be safe before we start shooting. And he's giving us the rundown, telling us about ear protection, how to hold the guns, what we need to do, all this other stuff. And he's talking to us about this. And there's this guy sitting in the back. And not sitting, he's standing, and another person with him. And the Marine sniper says, get your, you know what, up here. We're all talking safety here. You need to be here. And he wasn't going to shoot. In the end, he didn't shoot. He wasn't going to shoot. He was just standing there. And then he gets done talking about the safety on the gun line, rifle line. And then he backed up, and then actually the guy walked away. And people said, do you know who that was? And he says, no, that was a Medal of Honor recipient. He jumped on a hand grenade and saved his partner. And he said, oh my gosh, and here's the lucky part for me. But that night they had a long fire, and then it's called a flip-flop guy. And like you put you had a deer shoulders and stuff, and you put them on, and you flip-flop them, and you put seasoning on, and you just keep on flip-flopping and just shaving off meat. But this is no kidding. I happened to walk into the conversation with the Marine sniper and with the Medal of Honor recipient. And they were talking, and he said, I'm sorry, man. I didn't know, at that time, I'm in the mind that we're on the rifle line. And he said, you know what? I haven't been yelled like that on the rifle line since 8 years ago, and I felt good. I felt like, he said that. And he says, well, no, you're a Medal of Honor recipient. And he says, I'm just a regular person.
Oh.
And then I said, why? Because I like to ask questions. You guys know that. And I asked questions. I said, yeah, but you did something to save other people's lives. And he said, I said, why? What would drag you to? What would encourage you to go do that? And they said they would do it for me. And that's the kind of people we need around us. Because
Mm-hmm.
would you do that for that other person? Would we help that other person out when they really need it? Would we sacrifice ourselves for other people? And we have. All of us have. And that's where we may not have jumped on a hand grenade, but we have sacrificed ourselves for other people. You have Kelley has sacrificed himself for me. Ricky has sacrificed his time to help Don't Die Rusty technology get going, because Rick's a dumbass here and doesn't know how to get things going, and it blows up every once in a while on me. And Sierra has given me confidence that I'm talking to a younger generation and they're starting to understand what I'm trying to get out. She keeps me young at times, we'll just say. And that's when I got, because I can go back to these experiences, because I met a lot of cool people that day. I met NFL football players. I met some other special operators. I met some world-class athletes. But where I'm going with this is that one moment right there changed my life in just a little bit, because I had to realize that people that will sacrifice their life for others don't even think about it, because they would do it for me. So I had to ask myself the question, what would I do for other people? And I look around, and I look around in some places and you go, would they save their life for me? And I'm saying, if somebody came into the store shooting us up, who's going to run to the bullets and who's going to run away from them? And I know, because of the people I have met, the places, the things I have changed in my life. And I'm not saying I'm not saying I want to be a hero. I'm saying because I've learned honor, virtue, character, and integrity from a lot of special people in this world. I would go, if I knew any of you guys, I'm going to go try to save their lives or help them out, because they have family and other things to live for. And not that I don't have anything to live for, but there's times that you have to look within yourself and outside yourself and know that you are doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Cool.
You decide.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Notice how I turned that around here. So we got back on the right thing to do and got, but that's the things those are the things that I love that we get to talk about. I love these Ricktastic talks.
Mm-hmm.
I do, because finally, you know what? I'm going to go for my walk tomorrow, and I already have closure now after a month and a half of thinking about this, and we should have had a Ricktastic talk, and I wouldn't have been through this.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know it's late where you guys are on the East Coast, and
It's the mid coast.
Okay.
We're on the mid coast, yeah, and I'm pretty sure the coldest day the last coldest day was when I was in Oaks. I can promise you that. I have not day that cold since I was there. So
wait, so, you know what?
Rick says to me, I think it was Rick, he said, "You're moving where?" And I said, "Oaks, North Dakota." He goes, "That's God's country." And I go, "God's country? Why do they call it God's country?" He goes, "Because it's so cold up there, only God wants it." I don't think he's wrong.
and you know why? Kelley's a success up there in Oaks, North Dakota, because it's colder than hell up there.
Yep. Oh, Snowball has a chance here.
But anyway, I don't know. We need to ask a question here. So what do you think about I don't know the question we need to, what I can ask today. What's your? We have to have a last question here. Anybody have a last question?
Yeah, what brings you joy? Not happiness, joy.
Right.
Right.
Then why do you do this to me? Because then you send me off on another tangent.
Well,
So I'm going to ask all you three that, then I'll get back to myself. So instead of asking what's the good life or what's your next dream, I'm going to say, hey, what brings you guys joy? One of
Ladies
you answer.
first.
Well, right now it's honestly got to be, you know, being pregnant and watching Coy and Troy like prepare to have a sibling and another son. Like that just brings me joy. Those boys, just everything they do, and watching, even as I buy way too many new baby things that we probably don't need, but watching them smile and be like, oh my gosh, what is this for? Or where are we putting the baby toys? Or Coy telling us that he's going to change all the dirty diapers. I'm like, that, just those little moments are just, they just bring me so much joy right now. So that's right here in this moment, those boys, and getting to prepare to add another one.
I like that.
Yep. Here's the deal, though. Don't ever worry about me changing a daggone diaper.
Coy told us he'll change them if we hold his legs down, but we have to go fast because he'll pee everywhere. I'm like, yes, we do have to go fast.
How about you, Kelley?
Man, that's a multifaceted question for me, but I would have to say the broad answer is seeing the people in my life that God surrounded me with succeeding brings me joy. Just seeing them make good decisions and moving forward and seeing families grow and seeing dads figure it out and seeing moms understand it and watching them raise their kids and that's not just my own adult children. I think that's people that God's also brought into my life. That it's something about that when you see people that like the light switch come on for others, and they finally start like really getting it. That just brings me joy. Yeah.
Ricky?
Well, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is my daughter, watching her growing up, and just every day she just cracks me up. She makes us all laugh with everything she says, and just anywhere she goes, anywhere we bring her, she just lights up a room. You know, everybody smiles, and so she's a joy in and of herself. And so there's that. And then also I would say my wife and her, you know, and then watching her business kind of beginning to flourish, and, you know, just the art that she's creating right now is really, she's putting a lot of passion into it, and a lot of thoughtfulness into her work. And so it's really been fun to kind of watch that stuff too. So that's what brings me joy.
Joy to me is hearing that we are doing some good in the world with the Don't Die Rusty stuff. And that really makes me happy because it feels like I'm giving back something finally. That I feel sometimes in the world you feel like you're taking and taking and taking, and you don't realize that you are actually giving too.
Mm-hmm.
And another joy I have to say is it all wraps up into the one thing, because I have to say Cindy, because joy is when you have peace in your life, and it's not a constant UFC battle, we'll say life, I'm saying, and you have the trust and you have everything that goes on in life, and you can just smile and have peace in your life because you know that person is going to be there for you and encourage you to do your best, even though sometimes it's her, you know, I'm taken away from her at times too. I have to appreciate that, and it brings me joy there. And finally, no, I got two more. And the other one is the friends I have bring me joy when they They influence my life to make me better and to know I've finally made good decisions on good people in my circle. That is joy. And the last one, the very, very last one is raspberry ice cream.
Brings you joy. That's not ice cream, that's sherbet.
I'm just kidding.
Chocolate cake.
There we go. But actually, the others do, and you know, when we get to think philosophically, because I think sometimes we have lost that in this world because everything is in our phones. Everything is. We don't have to think at times, and we don't have to think about being a good person. We don't have to think about if it's right or wrong. We don't have to think if it's morally or virtuous. We don't have to think about our integrity because a lot of people can think about hiding how they. I was told, your reputation, your integrity, because everybody can have a reputation from looking at us right now. They think we can be good, but when our integrity, our virtue, our ethics, everything comes out, it'll show. You can't fool people when you aren't that. I think that's where we need to go in this world. And I actually think that there's a slow reset going on where moral and ethical values and virtue is coming back to be more important. And because of us talking about it, there's other podcasts out there talking about it, because look at all the hope that you get from podcasts. I think people are starting to think about that, so that makes me happy too. And I'm not advertising for any other podcast. You should listen to the Don't Die Rusty podcast first.
Yes.
But and Ricky and I are trying to get the website going, and I need to get a blog done, and the first blog is going to be what Don't Die Rusty is. Don't Die Rusty is not just 3 words. Don't Die Rusty is a way of life. Don't Die Rusty is hope. Don't Die Rusty is integrity, and Don't Die Rusty is about moving on, moving forward every step, and find your joy. So, anyway, well, this has been the live version, the live album of the Don't Die Rusty Ricktastics, and they will be back some other time. Thank you for Sierra for joining in with the tambourine, and thank you, Ricky, for being that guitar player, because I can't play guitar. I have to play bass. And thank you, Phil Collins, because you are awesome, Kelly Lovelace. And that's why you're going to be a permanent member of the Ricktastics forever and ever, because you bring us knowledge and joy and everything that is in between.
I don't know about that, but I do enjoy these conversations. Like, this is something I look forward to. So just keep that in the back of your minds. Like, yeah, I enjoy this.
I do too, and I think you being in your position, I think people get to see who you are. I was just talking about you the other day, and I'm not trying to talk about, I know we're trying to end this thing here, but I was just talking about you the other day, and when we were talking about that faith stuff that I was telling you about earlier, and I said, I don't feel guilty in some ways, and I know you and I have talked about this, but I went to church because of you, and I go to listen to you, and if any of your congregation go to church, listen to this. They need to bring other people to listen to you, because you are the best.
Well, I
at what you
appreciate
do.
that.
And it's kind of like I grade all my country singers and female singers, and I'm Patsy Cline. And Patsy Cline will always have the best voice, and you give God a
You're
great
Patsy
voice.
Cline. That's what I'm hearing you say.
You are, because I'm saying you give God and Jesus a great voice.
Well, good. I don't see myself as anybody. I'm a guy who likes to hunt and likes to be outside. I'm a guy that loves my family, and I'm a guy that loves God. That's just who I am. So that's what I want people to see and
But you
hear.
bring, but you bring a form of warmth and peace to a lot of people, don't you think, Ricky? When we were there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So anyway,
Hey,
I'll
there's one
stop.
important question though. Can it be done virtually? Because I really don't want to go anywhere colder than where I'm at right now.
Oh yeah, we're online. Yeah. We're on YouTube. So
Perfect.
it's Oaks Nazarene Church.
Okay,
ONC, Oaks Nazarene Church. Just go on there and follow.
yeah, I don't go outside right now, let alone going somewhere colder to then
I
have to go outside.
I understand that. Yes, and the commute would probably be rough for
A
you.
little
So
long. Yep.
yeah. So Oaks Nazarene Church on YouTube, and then you can get our website and all that stuff from there.
Perfect.
But so anyway,
Thank you.
don't
Thank you so much, Kelley and Sierra, for
Yeah.
taking today. And yeah, as always, Kelley, it's always a pleasure. Sierra, I look forward to hearing about that little one soon as he
Mm-hmm.
is born. And so yeah, again, thanks so much. Always a pleasure talking with you guys, and look forward to our next conversation.
Yeah. Good to meet you, Sierra.
Thank you.
Yeah, you too.
and remember, Ricky, March. If it's born on our birthday, it's named Ricky. So Rick. It's one of the two. So we are in there. So we'll be cheering her on.
Rick 2.0. Can you name him Rick 2.0?
You know, I might push for a different day. We'll see.
I'm holding on.
Yep.
That baby's coming. Not today.
It's coming on March 22nd. 11:58 on March 22nd. No, darn it! I got an even Rick 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, everybody, this has been the Don't Die Rusty family here. So as always, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty.
Have a good day, everybody.
Yep.
Have
We'll see ya.
a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Don't Die Rusty podcast with your hosts, Rick Hansen and Ricky Bruley. The Don't Die Rusty podcast is written and produced by Rick Hansen and Ricky Bruley. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook at Don't Die Rusty. You can rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You might find your review read on a future episode. Got a question for the Ricks? Send us an email at don'tdierusty@gmail.com. It too could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Don't Die Rusty podcast wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.